Hello, I'm back for stream part 2, well, video this morning, and just a look at what the alt market is doing. I don't think I have any requests, so I guess I'll just do what I normally do. I've got this store up here, Bitcoin dominance from the end of the last video. And I was talking about this then, so I won't go into too much more detail about it now, but yeah, the short version is we're likely to create a monthly supply up here, barring a big pump in the next 2 days. If we do, then we're looking at, are we going to get a rejection and then the bigger move down and the possibility of alt season part 2, or even a small rejection, and have this big 6-month supply play out? Or are we still just going to continue what we've seen for the last however many years, or the last couple of years, a similar scenario to here, where we just make a low and we just continue on upward and go head up. Ignore that squiggle at the top there. That was just for when I was comparing to the Bitcoin or the others charts when I overlaid to see what was going on. So yeah, just kind of have a quick finish on the dominances now. So I mean, Ether BTC I covered in the last stream as well, and I wanted a little bit higher on that. So that kind of tallies with this Ether dominance chart. This will also make a monthly demand below. Then onto others dominance. So as you know, so we've had this 3-week supply. So it just tested the weekly when it had a test here. And now it's obviously come up higher into the zone. So we're still in that just kind of indecisive, it's just range. We've had a nice run on alts, and now we're just doing a bit of consolidation. So again, I can sort of remove this. I was looking at the consolidation down here for a break up per the green line or a breakdown per the red line. So I can get rid of those now. On this again, I wanted a bit lower. I mean, this, to be fair, the zone even here isn't great, but just to want the start of this impulse up, but maybe it's picked up some higher support there. So it is possible that the low was put in there and then we're going to get a bit more of a run and a bit more alt season. But it's also possible that, we're now in 3-week supply and we're just going to reject and now come back down into this zone here. And that's really consistently what we've done so far. So I wouldn't, again, don't hold out your hopes too much. We are in supply. We had a sort of local test on it. And you can compare it to back here as well. We had a run down, we had a first bounce, which would have had everybody excited, but didn't get past that first supply, and then came down and made a lower low. And that's when we got the sort of bigger move at the end of last year. So it is possible we still get the same here, that we're still in that, we're at that high, and that we're going to get a move, not now, but later. So that's others dominance. TOTALDEFI was stronger. So this is kind of the only thing that's making me, kind of what I'm trying to get to with all of this analysis at the moment is, is it over? And the market's still very mixed on that. So my sense is not, because when it's mixed, then that's the case. This has pushed up obviously higher into 3-week supplies. And I was always more bullish on this anyway, because it was in this 2-week demand. Then it threw me off a bit with that last run down, because then I thought, well, maybe it'll come down lower into here. But again, there's the same argument with others, really, is it could go a bit lower, or it could go a lot lower if it wants to go all the way back down here. But DeFi has been like doing better in this run, which is kind of what we expected. And it does have a bit of space if it wants to get up into this monthly zone up here. Has made a new 4-day demand in there, also a 2-day kind of current price. So again, are we going to get a bit more of a push? And I haven't really looked at enough of the DeFi coins to kind of know for sure. We'll have a look at the market cap in a minute. The other thing, and that this is slightly challenging, because for some reason, and I have messaged TradingView support about this, but they haven't actually replied to me in 2 days, and I have a premium plan, so they're supposed to reply to me quicker than that. So I might follow up with them after this. But obviously this does have history, and you can see where I've had it drawn, but for some reason it's lost all the history in the last couple of days. So this obviously was significantly weaker, like we compare to the others dominance. This had a much stronger move up off the low, whereas this is much weaker and hasn't really come up much higher, like as high as others dominance did. It's similar to DeFi. It is in a, I actually can't see it, so I don't know why I'm scrolling, but it is in a 2-week demand here. it does also have monthly significantly lower. So we just got to really hope this holds, or others, the smaller alts are really going to get killed. And a lot of this comes down to the debate as to whether we are going to get the rotation. Like, again, everybody talks about the rotation from BTC to Ether to large caps to mid caps to small caps. And I had said at the end of my last stream, start of last week, I think, or the week before even, that maybe now was the time, if we were going to get a run on the smaller caps, that now would potentially be the time. Look, again, I can't see, unfortunately, that the market cap chart is also dead. So, but you can see again, this hasn't run past the monthly supply and hasn't really run up that much when you compare to others. So basically, the excluding 100 that are the small caps is still down here and it's still on a lower high. But whether we're going to get that rotation, so what I've seen since I thought we would have that rotation, I said that now was the time, if anything, like a week and a half ago. We have seen that, but what we're seeing is, if I go to the alts, every day, so somebody asked me actually yesterday, how do I choose which alts I'm going to chart? And I said, well, what I do is throughout the day, and but also particularly at the end of each day, or towards the end of each day, I sort my watch list by price change, and then I look at, and then basically what I try and do, in fact, is trade things like either sometimes I do aggressive longs, like if they've gone up a lot, then I'll look for an aggressive long entry, but I'll set the alerts for 12-hour demands and things like that. So let's say, I think SHX here is a decent example. So if I see something like this that's had a big run, then I might set, an aggressive long entry, and I did another one actually again today in case this is going to hold up here. Or I look for if these are in supply, and in fact this is a hit and miss one, so I don't necessarily FOMO straight to SHX, but this is it has just broken all-time high and may just end up being a swing fair of all-time high and may fall down from here. So but I look for things that are also at resistance, and then look and see if I'll look the next day to see if I can find any short any supplies, new supply made to short. So yeah, I tend to sort this list by the top, because I have, I think, 700 on this list, but I sort them by price change. So at the moment, you can see there's a whole bunch in. And what we're finding is there's not very many that are strong. Let me resort this, actually, because it's a couple of hours since I did it. It's a bit of a mission to sort, actually. It's because it doesn't sort the whole list, and I only have to click it like 5 times for it to actually sort the whole list. So it's sorting the bottom end now, but it's not sorting the top end properly. I don't know if I'm doing it wrong. I feel like I had it then. But sometimes it sorts like chunks of the list at a time, and if you click it 5 times, eventually it will sort the whole list. But anyway, yeah, so what you'll find is that quite often we have, I don't know, 5, 10, 20 that are as significant. And, in this case, there's what, I don't know, there's a couple of double ups in there. So maybe 8 that are kind of over 15%. Then you have a whole bunch that are just in that mid, like most of the list is obviously in the plus or minus 5 type range. And then you get all the way down to the bottom and you'll find a chunk of them are in the sort of, in this case, maybe 10 or so are in the negative. So similarly with the negatives anywhere that's had a big drop, then I might try and kind of go, okay, MIXIE, has this made a new supply? And then I start throwing in alerts, and sometimes it's there, depends how aggressive I want to be. So you can see something like this. You can throw in, there's a clear 4-hour supply on that. Set yourself an alert on it, or just watch if it comes back up there and, look to short a retest. And that way you're getting the things with momentum. So yeah, going back to what I was originally saying, what we're finding is that there's only a handful each day that are moving. And as a result, and then they tend to retrace over the forthcoming days. And then the next day, a whole bunch of new ones will come in. And you're generally not finding the same things on the list each day. So what you're also then finding is that the others chart, or particularly the TOTALE100 chart, hasn't moved up much. So I think from when I was talking about this potentially getting a run, so really what, if you can't see from this chart, so the 2 things I've talked about is, are we going to make a triangle here, or are we going to make should be like that, a rising wedge? So on others, you can see we've already got the rising wedge here, and it kind of broke out, so we had some higher highs. But on total E100, I was going, are we going to, you know, make that final run and have the smaller alts run? But because we're only seeing a few of them run each time, basically what's happening is the chart's going sideways. Take those lines off. So, you know, again, I mean, we're still consolidating here. We're still above this daily demand, so it's possible it goes up. And again, I think that did make a fall day demand by a hair, but it's obviously come back below it, so it could well flip it. So in the next couple of days, I'm really actually looking as to whether this does get some continuation or whether we're going to flip that 4 day supply. And similar on others. So, you know, others we're in this monthly supply anyway. We had the bounce there. You know, we could again. So we're looking now. And I said again in the last video that to just start being conscious that we might start to get some falling, and we did get that. You know, nothing significant really, but we have got a decent drop. Yesterday's pump took us up to be able to create that new 4-day demand, and I think we've got that on total 3 and total 2. And then we've got a daily and weekly below that could give us support if we start to fall. Similarly, on all these charts, the other thing of interest is that we are potentially going to create a new monthly demand here. So at the moment, this is like 3-week and 2-week on a lot of the charts, but potentially that's going to be a new monthly demand if we can hold up here for the next 2 days. And, you know, it's still not ideal because, you know, you can see here we made a monthly demand there and it did go up and it came back and tested it, but then eventually it did make a higher low, but eventually ran through that monthly zone. So, but again, we just need to see what the reaction is when we come back down there. If it confirms, if we don't get a big crash in the next couple of days. This is in a 3-month supply. It's not a very good one because it only toes very slightly below, but obviously it's still just in a sideways range. And whether you know, are a believer in alt season or not, kind of just depends as to how you view this picture. Do you view this as a, you know, a run up, a correction that's happened, and then this is a consolidation that's going to break out? Or do you view it as this is sort of more of a corrective move and that we're going to fall down? And as you know, so for me, for a while, I've been saying that I felt like this was potentially going to end up as a head and shoulders. Then there's pros and cons on that, you know, and we still need to see the rejection here to confirm that. Like, you can't, I'm just guessing as to what it may look like. And the reason I was guessing that is just because I didn't see that strength coming back into alts. And also I didn't see that we should necessarily have the same rotation that we've had previously. Like this time, again, like people say, is this time different? And people like to always say it's different. Historically, I didn't say it was different, but this time we do have all the money's gone into ETFs. Like the reason Bitcoin's going up is predominantly because we've got huge amounts of buying through BlackRock and Grayscale, etc. And those people, I don't believe, maybe they'll rotate out or they'll get more confident in crypto and start buying, you know, Ripple, Litecoin, BCH, the majors. That I can see. But I don't think they're going to rotate into SHX like I just showed you. Right? So I don't believe that capital's going in there. Whether there's enough capital that comes out of on the retail side to get into that stuff, I don't know. But like I say, what we're seeing at the moment is yes, we are seeing the small alts try to run, but they're not able to all go at the same time like they have done historically. So it's quite interesting. Yeah, it's and you know, these things, these are questions that have no real answers. They're just sort of we're hypothesizing, and they don't necessarily help you trade anyway. They kind of help you see what the bigger picture is of what the market may be doing. But knowing whether there's rotation, yeah, I mean, it's good to know, I guess, whether you can hold stuff. But I think, you know, and I've said many times, and we had this debate earlier today actually about, you know, is this so? I guess there is the argument that we had 2017, this big run. 2021 that we had this big run, and we're now another 4 years later. Maybe that's, you know, the time, you know, is this the time for this now to push out? Could be. Or are we saying, you know, that this consolidation is different, you know, because really, if we compare back to 2020, you know, once it had done the low, it did a double bottom in here, but maybe arguably like this, for example, but then it just went. And this hasn't, this has stopped, and then it's tried again and it's stopped. And, you know, like I say, arguably it's in this sort of sideways consolidation, and, you know, maybe it's just going to run through here, and then maybe it just needed a bit more time. But it's just those things to be aware of. So if you bought the lows, by all means hold. But for me, I don't think we're in like all season. I still don't think you should be buying in resistance. So if we are at resistance, either wait for the particular alts, because some alts drop and others don't, and this overall chart may not drop. Like when we think of all the alts, like most of the alts are not even close to this in structure. They're somewhere down here, if not below the 2023 low. And they're kind of testing these lower zones or making all-time lows. They're not following a similar pattern to this. But the simple fact is, the reason we look at this chart is that we go, okay, we've got a little bit of space, like really this is a daily supply. We've got a bit of space if we were to get another run into the weekly supply up here. This to me is not the time to be looking for longs, except if you find alts which have done the retracement down here and then you look for longs back in there. That's fine. I think overall, this is not, let's long everything in the market and hold forever and it's all good. If we come back down here and see a bounce, then great. Then the other thing on this, my other problem with whether this is alt season, I guess, is that was a very strong run. This was a very strong run. This is not. This is that, and then it's retraced all the way back down. We've been out. They're good moves up when we have them. But is this going to retrace? It depends what this retraces to. If it does hold here and start to push there, then it's probably a lot more bullish. But if it kind of retraces back down all the way into here, then what I'm thinking is that this is a bear flag and that's going to be the move down. And potentially all the way down into here. So again, we just need to see what happens. But that's my concern. And as always, I say don't hold any alts anyway, because I don't believe in it. You can hold them if you bought the lows, but don't hold if you're buying up here, because otherwise you could well be in this scenario where you're trapped for another year or so while it kind of comes back again. So that's pretty much that. Not much change there again since the last video. It's just messing around in this area, and we need to see if we're going to start getting a drop. But this for me has made me slightly more biased to looking for shorts on alts. But even like I say, with what the alt market's doing, it's very hard to choose what's going to run anyway. Like there's a handful that looks super bullish overall, like BNB or Ripple, and then you can just look for longs regardless. Well, maybe not Ripple now, but we'll see. Or TRX. But then a lot of the others, and certainly the smaller ones, you're seeing doing like big green candles and then retracing the entire thing in the next 2-3 days. Let's look at TOTALDEFI. So TOTALDEFI, as I said, is a bit stronger. So if this is a bear flag, obviously I've drawn it using these highs, but it's come up through it, but it's still, again, in supply. I think this has made a 3-day demand locally. So really it's just saying, are these local, very weak demands that we've made going to hold? They can hold like this. So here you can see there's made a 3-day demand, and it took a few more days, but then eventually had a decent run off it. So maybe we'll get a continuation from here, or we'll get the rejection and we're going to see a play out of that head and shoulders. I still feel this could maybe get a little bit more of a run on it. Take that out now because it's very useful. And it would be really nice to have the TOTAL100 chart to have a look at that a bit more closely. But anyway, so that's TOTALDEFI and others. Total 3 obviously is the one that more reflects the majors, so this has been stronger and obviously doesn't look like the head and shoulders that we've seen. And again, like it makes more sense for this, like while we did have a swing fail. So the whole thing, overarchingly, again, just to reiterate, if you haven't followed me previously, is whether these are all just double tops. Are they going to break out, or are they just large double tops, with this being a sort of corrective move up, certainly weaker than here. And this obviously reflects a lot more Bitcoin, so it becomes harder to judge what the alt part of it, which is why we look at others. So anyway, so similar with Total 3, this reflects more of the majors because it's starting to include the larger cap alts. And this squiggle here was, again, me saying last time, is that we don't want to long here. That if we do get a move up and then we get a flip of some support, like once we've taken out the high, then great, we can look for longs to the moon and be all season bullish, whatever. But for now, again, in major supply, we had a hit off the monthly here. Now we've come up to the top. Similar scenario to Ether, really. Got a weekly demand, a 3-day demand. We probably will make a monthly. So I haven't put all the monthlies in yet, but yeah, so we'll make a monthly at that second circle. So that would be kind of a nice level to get a retracement to. But again, being conscious that this could be a bear flag and it could just fall off a cliff. Total 2, yeah, Ether obviously pushed this a little bit higher than the original circle, but again, just in monthly supply, exactly the same scenario as Total 3. We want to really just want to see a retracement. You know, if you want to aggressively look for longs on Ether, assuming that's going to happen, that's up to you. For me, I prefer a retracement down somewhere around here and then just see what the reaction is, see if we pick up the low of this channel as a support. And I mean, there's no point saying total, I mean, total, like Bitcoin, obviously. Oops. And has, yeah, following the breakout. Yeah, and I'll just show US dollar dominance again quickly, actually, just because, again, so you know, so this is a much smaller scale, but this is basically, and the smaller scale and the context is completely different, but this is basically what I'm concerned about on the others chart. So I just want to highlight and illustrate that bear flag, and the problem I have with it is the fact, you know, that we're getting these full retracements. And the reason I drew this in the first place was that somebody said to me, oh, you know, it's looking bullish around here. And I said, I don't know, I think it's looking quite corrective, because this very deep retracement here, and obviously, you know, at this point, it, like I said, it can consolidate through here and just keep going if it wants. But until it actually does that, like it's basically quite a corrective pattern. And, you know, on the bigger picture, this is basically what others is doing. It's this, yeah, the paint icon stays on, but again, we've had the very deep retracement, taken out the high, sure, but is it going to make a high, like a high low here and keep going, or is it going to do much what US dollar dominance did and just run straight through? So at this point, you obviously tried to hold for that higher low in there, but then just ran straight back through into demand. So those are my concerns anyway on the alts as a whole. Should I go to? Yeah. So again, yeah. I guess just quickly in summary on that, what I'm looking at the moment. So what I'm trying to focus on in the alt market is I do the majors like I always do. I have my 2 new layouts, which I really need to get rid of and still haven't got around to doing yet. But what I'm really focusing on is just, you know, what's top gainers and and bottom gainers throughout, losers, top gainers and top losers throughout the day, bottom gainers. And then kind of throwing in, you know, so if I see something that's bullish, like yesterday I saw this, I was like, I quite like this. I have liked this for a while because it's got a 6-month demand in here. But that doesn't mean it's not going to get some sort of a rejection off weekly supply. And at a minimum, I kind of want to watch what's going to happen off here. But it might then give me a run back down for a short from here back into whatever demand I want for the potential next move up. So it allows me just to keep up to date on the things that do have momentum. Right, so let's go on to the majors. So we've had obviously TRX, BCH, and BNB have continued to be bullish, but not much else. So like since the drop, I mean, so we had this drop from when was it? 19th. And so we'll just start on TRX. And this is like obviously also quite a good indicator. And again, I'm kind of interested as to what it does, but you know, it's another sort of, when I talk about being corrective, if you see that, you know, in crypto, that's an impulse. Sure, this is the correction. But then what is this? Like, is this reaccumulation, vertical reaccumulation, possibly, to then end up in another giant candle like this? Or is this just a B wave where we've had, you know, got that move up and then we've got A, B, C? So that's what I'm always conscious of, and why I start kind of going, okay, just keep an eye out in case you're going to get a decent short off this. Because once you start getting into resistance, the probability is with the short side. And if they do fall, they do also have the capacity to fall a really long way. So, yeah, so anyway, like I had this daily supply here hit on TRX and it came back down, unfortunately. So on most of the majors, because I've been focusing on the other alts, I haven't made the entries like more aggressive. So obviously this was a clear, I think there's a daily, and I think there was also a 4 or 5 day, 4-day demand in there. So I've now made a new 4-day demand, but because I can't keep on top of these all the time, I tend not to be too aggressive. I just wait and see if they have the bigger pullbacks and then start to watch them. But also on this and on BNB particularly, I was just like, I want to see if these make lower highs. So I did throw in an alert for, I think it was a 4-hour supply in there, 4 and 8 hour, I think, just to see what reaction we got. But by then, you know, it made quite a lot of support, so it's now just continued to push today, which is not overly surprising. So yeah, some of these shorts that you'll see in these, I have said in the group, they're not overly high probability, but I wanted to kind of monitor them. And like I said, because I think if they do work, then they have the capacity to go a really long way if we're going to get the lower high. So obviously now we've come up and taken out this high, and we've got a bit of 4-hour supply significantly higher. So for that, for now, obviously still bullish. Would prefer a bigger pullback on it, just for looking for better long entries. I don't know if I really want to go into the BTC pairs in a massive amount of detail, but maybe I'll just have a quick look. TRX actually isn't really the best on the BTC pair, because it's just messy. So we're getting a bit of a run now. So I want to be, so this is coming off 6 month demand, but I want to be bullish. But again, like it's similar to the US dollar pair. And, you know, is it that we've just had this big pump, we've retraced it, and now we're getting a corrective up move before another drop? I realized there. You can be late, that's fine. Just started talking about the alts. I've talked about the market cap charts and others and all that at the start, but now I'm just starting to actually look at actual alts. Yeah, so anyway, the BTC pair on this, yeah, like I was watching it and it was just, I think, you know, other people seem to be much more comfortable than me trying to, like just going, oh, let's long this. But I just, when I see things in supply and when I see how like corrective that move is up, I'm just, yeah, I'm a lot more reticent about it, because I can much more likely see that happening before we get another up move. And this is obviously on the very high time frame, and also that can still happen with it would just, you know, with the US dollar pair going up. Like it could just mean that the US dollar pair pumps a little, Bitcoin pumps more than TRX. So yeah, anyway, that's TRX done. And again, the other thing I would just want to make a point of is like exactly based on the others chart, that if the others chart is gonna, you know, fall off a cliff and have that the bear pattern or the bear flag play out, do bear in mind, like, so while obviously this is a stronger chart TRX overall, but do bear in mind that a lot of these majors and a lot of alts have left a lot of stops below. So if, you know, that bear flag does play out and we get, you know, even if we get a move up first, that while I've got, you know, entries or sort of alerts in for monthly demand, and I think that there's a weekly there, and I think there's a 5-day inside the weekend. I'm not sure, I need to kind of revise these a little bit, but there is the very distinct possibility that this is going to run through everything if others, let's get back to that, just as I've got it to, if others does do what the US dollar pair did, and wants to run, oops, there. And if this wants to run through all of that, you know, again, there's a lot of stops that can be taken out, not to mention if this is a bear flag, then we expect, even if it gets a bounce here, similar to the US dollar dominance chart, that happens. So yeah, just be very aware of that. And again, as I will say, don't hold. So that is not what I'm expecting at this stage. We are still in an uptrend, and you are still welcome to. So again, per the last stream, the difficulty I've had, I mean, you can see there's a bunch of pink lines. So the purple line is 3-day, the blue line is daily or 2-day, the purple line is 3-day, the pink are 4 and 5, and the black are weekly, and the brown are monthly. But you can see how many lines I have through here, and there are some zones that have been tested and some not, but it makes it increasingly hard. And I've made it hard for myself, to be fair, by adding in 4 and 5-day, but the weekly was too slow an indicator, so I went to the 4-5-day, and now they've just seemed much more useful. But you know, you can look at every time frame. So here you can see there's a clean, actually that 4-day hasn't, that 5-day hasn't confirmed, but I think it is a 4-day. So there's a clean 4-day here. There's a 4-day below that has been tested. There's a 4-day here that hasn't been tested, but then on top of that, there's a 3-day, a weekly, etc. So it becomes quite hard to know which one's going to hold if it does decide to retrace. Okay, so moving on to the Litecoin. And Litecoin for that, I won't look at the high time frame because I've hated this for God knows how long, and I still just don't know. Again, like some people will say, there's a part of me that looks at this and thinks, well, it's made annual demand down here, and it can take 5 years to actually play out off that, and maybe this is going to pull a ripple. It's had this sort of 7-year, 10-year consolidation through here, and it's just going to suddenly go to the moon. It's possible, but obviously, again, the lower time frame makes it harder to judge that. So some of the majors, as you know, from my previous stream, we're going to see, obviously, a lot of the majors. I just ran through some of the alerts that I had, and it was just to reiterate quickly, it was whether we were going to get that, we always had this, whether we're going to get this upward channel and go and test higher inside the upper zone, or where we were going to have a triangle kind of play out and have these lower highs reject in here. So obviously on most of the majors we've seen, and some of the alts, actually, I thought the majors, most of the majors have gone through, but a lot of the alts, not a lot of the alts, but some of the alts are doing this lower high here. So I stand by my kind of purpose of having had those alerts in there in case we made lower highs and in case we fell off the trend line sooner, particularly since we'd had all these trend line stops down here. But anyway, LTC, if you've watched previously, we've seen that I had this, I think this 5-day supply inside the 2-week alerted. I was kind of looking for maybe we get another wick up to really refine it down to the daily up here, but we didn't get quite as high as that, and now started falling. This did make, so again, those 4-day demand, that's why I say this, we've got this weakness. So it's a 4-day demand. I don't want to short coming into a 4-day demand, but what I do want to look at is whether that's going to flip to a 4-day supply and then give us a decent move down. So we're now in a zone that it could have a decent reaction, but it's still fairly early. So that I've got a daily drawn in them. So yeah, it's not the ideal daily, but this potentially it can be a 3-day supply up here if it confirms, if we don't pull back before the end of the day. I already had a more aggressive short entry just based on this daily supply here. So similar to the what I was saying on the BTC dominance stuff at the end of the last video. Basically, so when you're looking at this is still in an uptrend. So, and it's come back down into here, and it's gone back to test this supply. So when you're shorting the supply, it's a high risk short, because it is still an uptrend. So you're still hoping at this stage that we're going to get a lower high. But it doesn't mean it's not worth doing. So while we saw TRX run through that zone, TRX being obviously significantly stronger than LTC, we've seen LTC, it took some time, and it would probably made you a little bit nervous because it had a nice reaction straight away, but then came back a good few times. It's a lower time frame. Yes, it had a good reaction immediately, but didn't make a lower low. Then it came back quite hard, then it came back slowly, but it still held that zone the entire time. So again, if you've got the patience to wait for that, and then, like I say, so if we get another run up, then I'd look at that daily a little bit higher. But yeah, so for now, LTC is obviously showing the pullback, but obviously still in an uptrend. And this, if it does make a 3-day supply, I'd probably start to be more inclined to look for shorts. And you can see a very similar structure over here. Actually, this wick did go through the 3-day, but it had made a 3-day supply, and then it came back up, and then that's when you got the bigger move down. So that's what I'm starting to look for on these now, if they're given. And LTC, BTC. So again, yeah, and I have gone through these and updated them. This has come up into 3-week supply, but it's just tapping off 2-month supply. So these are still very much in clear downtrends in most cases, in all cases for the majors. You can be as bullish as you like, but when you look back over here and you see things test 2-month supply and they just get rejected every time, and then even the this is actually 2022, so it's a long time ago. The 2024 pump didn't get past monthly supply. It's the same here. We're just rejecting off the 2-month supply in there. So it's still very early days if we're going to even assume that this is going to be something bigger based on the BTC pair. But certainly, what that BTC pair does do is support looking for a short on LTC, being as that's also in a macro supply. So Ripple at this stage is looking like a swing fair level high. And And but we could argue that the same on BNB, but BNB pulled out a comeback and has now gone up higher. But Ripple, so I had an alert set for the all-time high. It didn't give me an entry I wanted for a quick re-entry. I think most of the majors, partly I didn't look at them, and partly I set the entries a bit later. So if there were anything lower time frame, I haven't got them. So this has made a 2-day supply above. So again, I have set an alert on that just to see what the reaction is when it gets there. And again, with all of these, I just keep looking back at previous PA, and I've seen it can both go either way. So here it just makes a high, it just fails, and then just kind of dwindles down for a while. And again, we could get similar here. But then you'll see if you look at the breakouts like here and here, then this could, it doesn't quite look like either of those. It's now made a supply which those didn't have, but you can see that we are still in an uptrend, and in this case, it's only just tested the daily demand here, so there is no reason that this shouldn't just continue. But we're just looking for a scalp off that 2-day supply just to see what the reaction is. Ripple also, so Ripple had previously made a monthly demand, and we talked about an entry in like very tight, very right on this. I was in the 1st or the 2nd of the month that had the immediate reaction to get that decent move off there, but it's really not great that this hasn't broken all-time high. So if we look at this as a giant range, then we could well come and visit the low of the range. What we do want to see is that to happen quite slowly. So similar to this, we want a slow grind down, and then we can hopefully get the impetus for another bigger move up later. BTC pair on this again, I think it's on a lower high. So it hasn't had the breakout that the US dollar pair has. It is still on annual demand as well, though. So overall, we are still macro bullish on Ripple unless we start breaking this range. But again, just be conscious we're on the lower high now. We are on weekly supply. We'd like to see that test there if possible, and then just potentially come back down here. So that's Ripple. And then finally on the old majors, BCH. So BCH is one of the ones that's kind of thrown me off a little bit. I tried to be a little too aggressive on the short side, but again, I say they're too aggressive in that these two alerts didn't work. However, it's exactly the same scenario as I've just talked about, that they have made supply, and it is worth seeing to see if the reaction, at least in this case, it hasn't come down and tested this zone, and the same here, didn't make a significant high. So they're short in the range, so they are slightly more risky, but they're just looking for that lower high. In this case, didn't give it. And then managed to get a long, actually I think I had the long here alerted for the daily demand, but it did come down a bit deeper. It took us some wicks before running off there, and now it's back up in that daily supply that I've had alerted for God knows how long, for the possibility of just getting a lower high there. Now you'll get some people here who are saying we've got this break of trend. That was on the linear scale, and on the log scale we have the same. In fact, looking like a massive break of trend on the log scale of this whole huge consolidation. So for those who trade trend lines, they'll probably like that. I have the same difficulty on this that I have with TRX, that we have, we had all these stops left down here, and we had a retracement here that barely took any of them. Then we had a whole load of more stops left. So this is still, the nervousness, if this does come down, is that it could still run a huge wick and take all the stops. However, it does have a 3-month demand here, so that would kind of be my more confident entry to look for. It's 3 months, so it does encompass this whole area. That would be the area that I would prefer to look for a kind of an instant reaction around the 430 mark. If we get a retrace down there, and then I've just got more aggressive, so there's a daily demand in here, and then there's a weekly here. Again, it's trying to judge if we're going to if we get one giant candle down, then we just blast through everything. I took my pen there and lost it. Yeah, so you can get many scenarios, like if I'm right and if this is the top, if this is the yearly supply, another second test on it, but if that's the yearly supply playing out, then that could just fall like a stone. And it does have the stops to kind of support falling like a stone. However, if it's just going to do a gentle correction, and if the trend lines are more relevant, then maybe we just come in here, we get a correction, even if it doesn't get all the way down, but at least maybe it gives tradable bounces off each of these. I'm being too conservative there, but maybe it gives tradable bounces off each of those levels. So that's why I alert multiple levels. But on the high time frame perspective, this 430 kind of area is where you want to be looking for macro longs if you can get that retest. And then what's the BTC pair on this? I can't actually remember. Okay, yes, I actually did have an alert go on this. So this was quite a nice confluence on the alert. So it's monthly supplies of 6 months a little bit higher if this still wants to do another run. And we've got an annual on this. So the BTC pair can be good for looking for confluence for the macro shorts. So again, a whole load of trend line stops below, still has new weekly demand in here, so we just need to see what the reaction is. But that was quite a nice confluence for the short and the daily. I think both of those hit at the same time. That for the US dollar daily supply. And yeah, we just need to see what the reaction is when we get into here. So while again this looks very corrective and nasty, it's one of the few BTC pairs going up, but it's hit a major zone. So let me just have a look at the time frame. So really, if in doubt, oops, didn't mean to do that. If in doubt, zoom out. So 6 month supply up here, which actually hasn't quite tested. 6 month supply here that hasn't quite tested. And then I think, oh yeah, I had the 6 month level just for this sort of more bearish rejection off the bottom there. That annual hasn't been tested as well. So again, if we get some continuation there, be very careful once this gets to the annual level. So I've got an alert on that. And then for now, we are at an area that we could at least have a short-term local rejection, even if we just come down into here. Yeah, so that's BCH. And BCH, to be fair, is pretty nice for just trading each little bounce off those. And this highlights exactly what I was saying, I think, for TRX as well, that again, so many lines, so many 4, 5 day, daily, 2 day, 3 day, 1 week zones in there is making it increasingly hard to choose which zone, compared to something like here where you've just got one clear 2 day zone. If you want to look for an aggressive long, maybe a 3 day just underneath that. Here, there's just hundreds of them. Just a slight exaggeration, but you know what I mean. So yeah, it makes it just hard, but you can certainly look at the most recent ones, but then just be careful of any wicks. Then on to new majors, the first ones. So these are always the more bullish ones, BNB, Link, ADA, and DOGE, because they were all coming off annual / 6 month demands at the lows, along with BCH actually. BNB was the most bullish of all of them, because BNB created a new monthly demand, or 3 month in fact, by the looks of it, down here at the lows. So we could manage to get a very nice long off that. So the expectation of this was always that ultimately it would take out the high. But again, I always have possibilities of shorts because we're trading this, we're not investors. So back down here we had a decent reaction, but it didn't unfortunately with what BNB hasn't done is really given me any long re-entries here. Even this one, I think I was confident we would probably get back down to here for a retest, and even after that alert we didn't. Although that short possibility we didn't. I did on this put an aggressive long entry in for this 12-hour demand here, but when we had this run, so this drop that we had last week, on a lot of the majors went through the immediate zone. On some of them it dropped into the next zone, but in others like this it's kind of ended up with a swing fail and sort of floating. I mean, arguably it's not really a swing fail because I probably should draw that including more wicks, and it's obviously a bit choppy on the lower time frames, but this essentially did take out that alert. Then, as I said a minute ago, I did put an alert for the possibility of a lower high. It made this 4-hour supply at a breakout level. I said in the group that this may or may not work, and I said if it does reject here, then I'd probably be bearish on the market as a whole, and that's most of the reason why I wanted this alert. But obviously it's run up through that. I guess Bitcoin's dumping again, so it's judging by the drop on this. So yeah, and my concern, I guess now, I was thinking, do I put a long on this new daily demand in here as a daily, or do I delete this 12-hour? I guess my little concern on this now is, are we going to continue the breakout, or is it going to end up more like Ripple. Go to Ripple quickly. God, my charts feel really messy today, sorry. Are we going to end up more like Ripple, where and Ripple made the 2-day, this is quite similar to some of 2-day to BNB, to be honest, but Ripple, it did hold the breakout, to be fair, whereas BNB came back below, but it went up. The point is, it went up for a few more days and then tried to make a new high before falling. BNB has made a much more significant new high than Ripple. So again, if you want to aggressively long, you can look in this daily demand here. Is to be coming back down to, or on its way back down to. Don't know if I love this 12-hour now. And the same comments really apply that I've said on all the others now. It's like, are we just going to get a run through a lot of stops through here? Or are we going to get like a slow bounces down like we have over here that are going to allow days of up move such that it's worth alerting all the possible demands as we come down. And it's probably just going to hinge really on whether Bitcoin's going to hold the range or not. If Bitcoin ranges sideways for a while, we might see some more calm retracements on this. And FOMC tomorrow is going to be probably the most critical thing. I actually didn't look and see if there's news today. I'm feeling there was. It's 3 o'clock now, so I wonder if there's some news in progress. But anyway, yeah, so that was kind of my concession to an aggressive short on this to see if we were going to get the swing fair in the lower high. But for now, I won't look for shorts on this, I don't think. It looks like it's going to make an 8-hour or 12-hour supply in here at this stage. But yeah, obviously this, compared to everything else in the market, this is not a high probability short. So I would just say probably worth leaving it alone on the short side. And if you want to aggressively long this, then you're looking back down in around the kind of all-time high / in the 780 kind of area for more aggressive longs. And yeah, again, the BTC there. Just quickly, let's see where that's at. So this is in monthly and 2-monthly supply. Yeah, so I have become more bearish on this more recently, even though the US dollar pair was doing well. Because this had made, I think, 6-month. Yeah, it's made a new thing, so you can see. So it's made a new 6-month supply here, and yeah, 3-month at the same level. Back up in a monthly. So again, this has some space to go maybe a little bit higher, at least to the 6-month level. But it's come off a weekly supply. So again, still in a downtrend. It's an immediate downtrend, and then you can argue that is this a higher low, and now we're going to start a new up move. If that's the case, if this is something we're going to do, even if we do the same kind of bear channel that we see on others and everything else, that still gives this a huge amount of scope to go up. And then certainly we would see alt season. But for now, I need to see that rejection, and I need to see us hold another higher low. Or yeah, I just need to see a bit more than this, because while we could have the double bottom locally, we are still in downtrend / sideways range. And my preference on this would be still to go a bit lower, a lot lower. So you can see the similarities even with this and that TOTALDEFI chart. Actually, this is more similar to that. BNB, I don't believe is DeFi. Or is it DeFi? I don't know. Does an exchange count as DeFi? Not sure. Anyway, so something to watch out for. But again, not in a point that I really want to be looking for aggressive longs on BNB. Chart back. Link was one of the more challenging ones, because so Link, while I was bullish, I've kind of hidden the major zones here, but this is a yearly level up here. This whole thing is a yearly demand, but it only made it by a small margin, so it was a weak yearly demand. And as you can see, there's more of the similarities to the head and shoulders that I've talked about on others. This made a new 6-month supply, was what really kind of threw me, and I just wanted to monitor. So it's not a good one. It was essentially a 6-month demand, so really it's a sideways range. But if it does make a 6-month supply like that, this red candle closed slightly below that green one, then I want to be just aware of that and not looking for long. So I've been kind of leaving this alone on the long side. It's now looking like it might create. So again, I think I didn't talk about it on BNB. Actually, BNB may not have it, but a lot of the majors that look like this and have that pump now, again, we're watching for that monthly demand to confirm in the next 2 days. But yeah, so on this, I was slightly more aggressive on the short side, just because I wanted to see the reaction off the 6-month level itself, which really didn't do much low time frame. Then on the zone, I think this is a 3-day or weekly or something on the zone, the first kind of major local zone inside it. And I'd already highlighted the similar issues that we have a higher low. So it's like, is structure more important or is supply going to win? Are we going to end up with that again, the bear flag, or are we going to end up with the triangle? So exactly as I've said a minute ago, I was looking for those shorts that got run through. Then we came up into this, I think it's a 5-day supply there. So that was my next upper alert on this, I guess, for like if I ignore the 6-month zone. And there were equal highs at $20. So I had said a couple of times that, and I think I said even in that alert, that I was looking for the 5-day supply, but there were these equal highs over the 20 that I also had alerted. And then similarly, again, the aggressive lower high entry on this has worked. Highlights to you why it's worth, in some cases, doing the aggressive entry. Some won't work. TRX, BNB didn't work, but Link has worked quite nicely and LTC has worked. So I guess that's 50-50 of those 4 so far. I think most of the others haven't actually hit though. This has also made a 4-day demand. Slightly better than the one on LTC, but it's still dipping quite deeply into it. So I want to see where this closes. Is this going to close more strongly, or is this going to flip this to a 4-day supply? We've still got 2 days, 10 hours for that to happen, so it could take some time. That may not even give it, but that's why you want to give the more aggressive entries. Maybe we'll get a 3-day. In fact, we might get a 3-day supply sooner, so maybe this will give another aggressive short entry if it makes a 3-day supply. So it's very, very similar out, in fact, to LTC. It's probably got maybe coming from a better supply. If we run up, we've got another 5-day level up here and a 3-day inside it. So, but for now, I'm kind of looking at, is this? It's not the ideal bear flag. Maybe I should just draw it over the 2 immediate highs, but I don't like to draw it up a high before it's confirmed. Is that going to be that bear flag? Are we going to get a higher low in here? Are we going to create monthly demand? 2 days to know. What will we see? But I haven't put any long entries on this. I put one back on support, but I haven't on the weekly, mainly because I just don't like that 6-month supply in there. And I feel like this is the same. So, and my confusion a little bit on Link as well was the fact that BTC pair was kind of the only thing. I think most of the BTC pairs on the majors are at all-time lows, but Link was the only one that would hit a monthly. I had an alert for this monthly, and then I had a follow-up alert for the 2-month. Obviously, it's a big zone, can still come deeper if it wants to, but this was kind of like my indecision. Is this, at this point, was this going to run up from here based on this having these monthly demands, or was that a 6-month on the US dollar pair going to reject and have this just drop lower? So obviously it has run up from here, and we are now in a 2-month supply. Second test on it. Similarly has space to go higher if it wants to. But yeah, it would be nice to see this come back down, hold here for a retest, and then maybe look for longs on the US dollar pair. And maybe that will mean that this is going to hold any new monthly demand it makes, or this weekly in here. We'll have to see. And finally we have DOGE as well. So ADA. ADA, large 6-month demand at the low. So obviously I was like overall bearish on this. Bullish on this. Didn't quite do what I wanted it to do at the low. So I was looking for a swing fail to take out those lows. We took out one of them, but not both, obviously just a bit awkward. So I then threw that alert in again, but obviously it ran straight off the one before. So a nice entry there. Similar to all the others, it went through immediate supply, had a bit of I think gave a bit of a reaction off that one, but then it's gone higher, so back again for that. In this case, it's less and less of a bear flag that made the higher high off this swing fail here, which again is what you'd expect. We take out the low of this wave, then we should take out the low of the high of that wave. And came back up into this 12-hour supply that I had been just missed from here. So again, kind of a nice short entry on that. I think I didn't, this for some reason I didn't alert the 12-hour in here. for a short re-entry. I mean, it hasn't got back up there anyway, so it's kind of irrelevant. Had made the 4 hour demand, so the same as Link and LTC. It's coming back through the 4-day demand and may make a 3-day supply today. So I might start putting some more aggressive short entries on these if we make that 3-day supply at the end of the day today. And this is less of a stop hunt issue as some of the other ones, but looking for that full retracement, that would be an ideal long entry. I haven't got anything more aggressive because it's a little bit choppy in here, but you can look for longs on this 12-hour daily demand in there if you want to. So all of that. So when I talk about the local longs, just be conscious that of what Bitcoin's doing. So obviously if Bitcoin's falling off a cliff, don't start FOMOing into longs on alts. And most of the time you will have time. And we've only had one wave now. We've had a sort of an A, B, and now we're potentially having a C wave. And the C wave could just be a mini correction that'll take us to there, or it could be the start of a bigger correction. And I still need some time to kind of judge that. You can see similar here. It started to make supply, it started to reject it, it drops back into some sort of a demand here, then tries again. So we could still get that wick back up there. So I think, there's actually nothing wrong really with having a short entry there. I think the fact there was a 6-month demand off the bottom here was making me slightly more reticent. Don't know if this will make, this also is potentially going to make a monthly. So the other thing is, I think once this monthly confirms, if we can hold, it can very easily get back down below here in the next 48 hours. But if we do see these monthly demands hold, then I might start revising some of these long entries below. I still need to have a think about the structures and just see exactly where we close. And AWBTC, so you can see similar to the others, it's come off a monthly supply. This also had a 6-monthly supply. We had a 6-monthly supply on the US dollar pair, but again, you can see ADA's made 6-monthly supply. I did have a long for the low, made a 6-monthly supply, and has come back up. Second test on the monthly inside there and is off the higher low. So at that point, again, could go either way. Higher low, so the structure is back down at the bottom, so we just see this as a giant range. We are at the bottom of the range. We had a big move off the bottom of the range, and now we've come back for that same level. But it's got halted this time at local supply. So again, just want to see a little bit more follow-up. I hope this at least is highlighting anyway why I'm sort of a little bit indecisive on things, because crypto does make it really frustrating. When I start looking back to the left and you sort of see, for example, something like that. So this broadly resembles that, and you start to sort of, then you feel a bit of like pre-FOMO, that, okay, yes, I called a long there, and that's what I always say, enter at the low, so, hopefully you would have entered this here. But to know that it's suddenly going to go through every single supply is when it's quite hard to judge. At times it does, but then, you could argue that here it didn't even get the bounce, but then certainly didn't get the bounce, let alone get back through supply. And this is, I think, what a lot of people in the space feel the FOMO about as well, that I try and say not to, and I try and moderate it in myself as well, because if you look like taking this ADA chart, you have one massive run in, when's that, February 2018. This other run that started January 2021 to August 2021. Arguably another little run here, but so let's say, what have we got? 1 to the left, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, if you want to be generous. 5 in 8 years. So you're at best getting, 1.3 a year or something like that. Versus what we're trying to do when we do this is to trade every little, not every, but like we're trying to trade all the little bounces, and that will increase your portfolio much more quickly than buying every low, hoping that this is going to be the time that you're going to get that big run, because most of the times every low is not giving you that big run. So that's ADA again, decent place for looking for shorts, still very rangy. So a lot of these, I guess, they're just rangy on the higher time frames. So we just need to, again, as always, trade our supply and demand as and when they're hit. We can look out for the ones that do start to run big and see if they are going to pull the rest of the market. So we had that big run on Ripple, and everyone's like, oh, it's going to pull the rest of the market up, but it didn't. Pulled a lot of it up at the time, but not anywhere near as much as Ripple. And the same with BNB now. It hasn't really pulled the market up with it. And And then Doggy, which I have endless debates about in my channel because a couple of guys there are really liking to trade it. And the endless debates tend to be surrounding, and get a look at the bigger chart, tend to be surrounding, is this the same? So if we go back like to all the history, you know, that we've got this big move up, sideways for an extended period of time, big move up, sideways for an extended period of time, big move up, sideways for an extended period of time, and you know, that's the expectation for the bulls. And I have nothing against that expectation, particularly given we have an annual demand in here. My reticence of the expectation is whether it's ready. You know, this one took quite a lot longer and had a lot of bouncing around. This is a bit cleaner, in fact, this time. We do have an annual demand there, so that's helpful. But again, we're not, I don't know, it's taking a bit too long. So I just wonder, you know, if this is, and now we've got a wick up into there, is this just either more sideways in here, or are we going to come down and test some better demand? You know, is that actually the low? It's not a 2-month demand. So structurally, I've got no problem with this, but again, it's not a buy now. It's just come back up, come up and hit this 2-month supply again. It's taken a wick through. So this I think I had an alert here for possibility of a lower high, same as everything else, but it's taken a wick through, but not, you know, I would like to see this a bit higher. I do think at least it has scope to get up to this monthly. Is this going to make a monthly? Yeah, so it's the same. It might make a monthly demand in here. So I guess like perfect world, what you want to see is that these majors create this monthly demand in there, that we get a slow move back down into it. Mouse isn't working terribly well, slow move back down into it, and then we at least get another run up to a better supply up here. If not, you know, for a bigger breakout, we are on annual demand. The risk is that chop below. The risk is whether this is corrective, you know, whether that's the A, that's the B, that's the C. So it's all these, for me, I'm just unsure, and other people seem to quite happily, like I say, call this as a massive bull run, but I don't know if that's truly. I think I know that some of the analysis used, at least by the people in my group, but I mean, I'm talking less about Doggy, but more in general, people are quite happy to say this is going to the moon from here. And maybe they see something I don't. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to judge. You look back at here and it's similar, you know, that kind of similar sideways pattern, then suddenly it throws a green candle. So if you really want to hold for that, then you need to be in this already. You should have been in this, you know, since 2023. Retest on 2024 and even the retest last month, and then maybe we'll get that big green candle if you want, but just be careful about trading that and assuming that when you're on the low time frames. So Doggy similar here, so I did have similar to all the other charts. So we had the more aggressive short, the slightly less aggressive short. Both of those eventually got run through in favour of that bear flag and taking out the high. I have put an alert for 8-12-hour supply on this. If this gets down to demand, I don't know if I'll like that so much. I might delete it if it gets to demand first. That's the other thing with a lot of these shorts. Like I don't. Preferably, I want to, if you're taking the lower high short without a confirmed break of structure, so let's say it's on the daily. So if we're saying that this is your last up move, if you're taking a short, like a lower high short here, or even if you take one off this, then a new daily supply in there, then you don't really want it to hit here first. So you're taking it with the intention that this is at the moment just retracing this up move, and that we're going to potentially get another big up move. So what I don't really want this to do is to come down into here and then go for that. Or it becomes lower probability if that's the case. So we'll see, and it's similar to everything else. This is hard, you know, do you want to trade longs on this central section? Do you want to wait for the bigger retracement? Is this a corrective move, or is this, if it's an impulsive move, then it could get a run straight off that. But again, this is a bit of a cleaner chart, so just watch for the reaction around that 0.2, just below 0.2 mark. And if it comes back into the start here, be conscious of trend line stops on that. And look, I didn't look at the BTC power, I was looking at the other. Again, just not definitive enough for me. So it's got the 6-month supply that it's gone into here. and it's got a 1 month supply, which may flip to a 1 month demand. And Doggy likes to do this. Like, again, I've wanted this to have on this zone for God knows how long. This happened to me on the dollar, actually. Like, it makes me think that there was a zone similar to this. This actually doesn't really look dissimilar to the dollar, from at least the parts I'm remembering of it, that I wanted this low to be here. I wanted this low to be here. And then when on the case of the dollar, when it eventually did get here, it did this tiniest, shitty little bounce and then went down to the annual below. And it's ironic that Doggy actually does have an annual below here. So it'll be quite kind of interesting if that does exactly the same thing when it gets to the zone that I actually want. I think it's the same on the BTC, on the US dollar pair. Can't remember. I think there might be something lower that I really wanted, but particularly on the BTC pair, I wanted just down, what my fib's doing all the way up there. All the way off the bottom as well. Yeah, because the 61 fib is even at the bottom of that zone. But anyway, I have an alert here for now. Weekly, 2 weekly, and then monthly demand on top of that. So we'll see if that alert goes. But again, just getting that decent retracement now, but no break of structure. So what I'm seeing on most of these is that just no break of structure on the higher time frames. The BTC pairs make that a bit cleaner than on the US dollar pairs because they're more ranging. That dog, I find that dog intensely irritating. Anyway, right, so yeah, that's that doggy. So anyway, on all of these, you can see all the entries, all the alerts that I have, and the same kind of comments apply to all of them, that my reticence of where is my train of thought, my reticence of what the pros and cons of essentially this being sideways, and my pros and cons of whether we're in a triangle or a bear flag versus whether we're in the start of another bull run or another up. Dot's kind of a nice one actually to show finally the opposite scenario. So from the bear flag perspective, this is one of the ones that has, well, I don't know if it's really a triangle arguably, but if that's the high, this is not really a triangle. Maybe it's a negative bear flag, or whatever you call that. It's a bull flag still, isn't it? But we still expect down and then up, even if that's a bull flag or a falling wedge. But this is one that hasn't made a higher high at this point. It's basically the point, whereas some of the other ones that we've seen so far have taken out that high for that rising wedge scenario. This is one that's formed the triangle pattern that I wanted, hence has been worth looking for the more aggressive short. So similar here, we had a short entry there, which took some wicks and got run through, then very nice short entry. This one worked quite well on that 5-day, 4-day supply up there. And could well make a 4-day. I think this hasn't really confirmed much yet. Could make a 4-day, 3-day supply in there today. And 2-day, the 2-day that it's already rejected off, so hasn't come back for my re-entry. But on this, due to this being in an overarching 3-month supply, or 3-month, 6 month as well. I don't know, there's so much chop in there. So there is a 6 month there. And yeah, hit the 3 month. So it was this was a retest of the 3 month. That's what it was. So this was the first hit on the 3 month, which did go up higher inside it. This was the zone at the kind of 3 month retest level, which is why I chose to look for a short there. And it's got a local daily demand, got a weekly demand down here, but just want to see. This is I did have a long for the low on this. This was an untested 3-day demand here. It's very hard, when you're hitting like a 3-day demand when you've got 3 years plus 4 years, 5 years till it got there, and then it's got so much supply above. So it's very hard to know whether other people really who are waiting too long here, who've been waiting since 2021, that are now going to push this back up through all this macro 6 month supply, which is the challenge. Yes, I just want to see if we get a bigger breakdown off this now. That if you follow my previous streams, you would have seen that short entry, so maybe you took that. And then there's weekly demand down there, which may or may not hold, but again, bear in mind, downtrend. So it's an aggressive test, still a downtrend, trend still made a new low. Aggressive test can still make a new low. And I'm pretty sure, so I think this second set of majors are the weaker ones. And I think most of these are at all-time lows. Some of the BTC pairs just still look completely hideous. I had kind of hoped that DOT and NEAR, I think, might get a bit more of a run because they had, they've got a lot more space to the 2-month supply, and that kind of lended a little bit of credence to the possibility that we'd have a, sorry, I need my train of thought. I'm just checking my stream. Yeah, that lent a little bit of credence to the possibility that we'd get a run on that E100 indicator, or the smaller alts would run, because DOT isn't that small, but it's smaller than TRX and BNB, for example. But yeah, it still just got hung up at local supply there. So similar to what happened here, it could just continue down from here. So we can check the reaction on that weekly there, but not overly confident when we're in such an epic downtrend. I'll do NEAR and Atom before SOL because the structures of NEAR and Atom are more similar as well. So again, NEAR was hoping for another run to get up to this monthly supply, but it's also like DOT on the swing fair of the low, but still is getting hung up in this 5-day supply in here. Had more, yeah, we kind of had better hopes for like NEAR in the bigger picture. I'm actually quite like, it's on this 3-month demand here. It's a second test. The swing failed into it. So NEAR would be one of the ones I'd potentially be more confident of looking for a long on a retest if we get one down here, rather than assuming it's going to make a lower low. But I find it hard to know that if an alt is being, oh wow, I just realised it's 3:30. I've got an appointment at 4 o'clock, so I'm going to have to run quite soon. Yeah, it's very hard to know if an alt is weak because it's got catching up, or whether it's weak because it's weak. Because we've had the rotation, like historically we say they tend to catch up. But if the rotation isn't really a thing anymore, then are they going to catch up? Once the market's done, is that just going to die from there? Does this make, is this now just a bear flag that's going to drop lower? So anyway, yeah, that's still sort of fairly indecisive and similar to DOT here. Like, okay, we've come through that local zone now, but just it's still on that lower high. Still like to see the retest. So these ones, the maybe DOT near what we've just seen, there can be some hope that we're going to get a retest that'll give us something. Give us some hope for maybe a bigger alt season a little bit later. Again, want to see those retests. They also probably won't make the monthly demands, but I need to run through and check those. Atom, again, more aggressive shorts on this. Again, has got the lower high, hasn't done that. The channel, again, I was hoping for. So you can see on some of these, I guess the thing I want to reiterate is that we could get another wave. This is what I commented on at the start, that even a local wave, that some of these do have some space. We've got things like BNB that's in TRX that BNB is all-time high, and we could just keep going. But when we're talking from a confluence perspective, these could still hold this demand and could still give another wave to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 before dropping. Or are they just making that triangle and this is it? And that's, the indecision. Atom, again, I haven't got a long end route on this similar to Link because I just don't like where the low is. So it's got some wicks through here, and I don't like the fact it's coming off 3-month supply, and sort of everything about this I think is just more bearish. It's coming off annual here. It's retesting 3 months, second retest on 3 months. Like I say, could go higher inside it, but I'm not confident making a high and low long on this compared to some of the others. But entirely up to you. See all my charts here. I may not have alerts or entries, but you can see exactly where the zones are. So 4.2 in here is where you'd be looking for a long on this if you really love Atom. And then Atom BTC, yeah, again, so it's had a wick since I did the low time frame, but a wick just up into weekly supply and is now second test on this weekly demand. So keep an eye on it. Maybe it'll hold here, but not something it's not in a bullish structure. It's in a big downtrend, so not something that we'd be overly confident of. And then finally on the majors, we have SOL. So SOL was a bit nicer. So SOL, for whatever reason, I can't remember why, and I do remember why, it was the only one I hadn't put a lower high short on. I had one in here, but it was in a different structure and different time to the others. So this was a weekly supply at the time, and actually did give a tradable reaction down to the new 3-day demand. But I'd left this because this wick I knew hadn't quite hit the monthly supply in here. It also has this 5-day inside it, and also had some stops. So it's quite similar to Link. Had some stops above there on the lower time frame. A lot of these also actually, while I haven't got them all drawn in, I do have them here. I've got this large blue zone with 2-week demand drawn on Sol. Like, I don't like them much because they're not clean. You know, we've got this big gap. You know, it's 2 weeks down and 2 weeks up, and they're huge zones. And I think most of the other majors look a lot worse than this. But yeah, and again, might make a monthly demand back down here. So again, decent possible entry down on the weekly demand there if it revisits. Thing to just be conscious of here is same as everything else, that rising channel. The fact we've taken out this high and potentially going to close back below, that maybe we'll come back and take out that low and come back down into here. But again, of these ones, okay, it's not on my more bullish list with the 6-month demands on everything else, but this is holding that monthly demand that was really bounding this whole consolidation here. So I'm not bearish, particularly on Sol overall. There's plenty of zones below that it could retest if it wants to, and the low time frame is a little bit awkward on this now. But yeah, I just want to see the reaction. So I guess in summary on all the majors, you know, they're all either in this rising wedge or a couple of them in, except for Atom and Near, which are all in potentially a triangle. Maybe have a scope to do another move up, but certainly at a point now that we can see a decent weeks long consolidation or retracement similar to this. Most of them have weekly demands, most of them have trendline stops that could sort of wreck the weekly or monthly or 5-day or 4-day. Like most of them got this sort of choppy demands throughout, so be careful which ones you trade, as they could throw wicks through, but we just want to see the reactions. Are we again going to get a higher low? Because we have a 1, 2, 3 up here, but we could still get a 4, 5, and taking up higher into supply, even if I'm bearish overall, even if this channel still plays out, that we could still get another run, or we could get a fall down into here, and you know, even if it's just a tradable before we fall off a cliff later, based on the bearish scenario. On everything, the similar, the bullish scenario are the, you know, the major demands at the lows going to play out now. Yeah, it's still very possible. Or are we going to, on that, based on the others chart, get that inverse head and shoulders bear flag play out drops? Yeah, so that's pretty much it, I think. And like I say, I have an appointment in half an hour, so I have to run and jump in a cab. I hope that's useful. I did want to go on and have a look at a lot of the other alts, but I guess maybe I've done all those, and probably because they're going to faff around for the next few days anyway, it means I can probably do another stream tomorrow and talk about the trillion alerts that I've had come in. It's back to this SHX. So finally, I'm going to be able to start a new watch list in the next couple of days. Yeah, but I can go through some of the ones that have come through at the end of the month. And yeah, I guess so. Just finally on alts, the main thing to be to reiterate from what I said at the start of the video. Yeah, what I said at the start of the video is to say that sort the list, find the ones with momentum. If they're going up and they're coming into supply or resistance, then look to short them back down, because you'll get those are the easier trades. For example, OMNI. I don't know if this gave an entry on the lower time frame, but particularly if they come up in a very quick candle like that, that's a 4-hour candle. But if they give you re-entries on the lower time frames, then you're going to get potentially significant drops down. If they come up more slowly, more like this, although this did still retrace anyway, but if they're coming up more slowly, more like this, then look for potentially for getting into long entries, like I showed at the start on SHX. Not the best example, but this has obviously got this. I did actually have one big candle up, so it's definitely not the best example. But if things are coming up more slowly, then obviously they have more support. Then you can start, as the case how it does have a daily demand, you can potentially look for long entries off the top of there, but it saves trying to guess which one is going to do this each day. And on the flip side, look for sort the list and look at the bottom end of the list as well, and the exact reverse, the inverse comments. Logically, find things that hit demand, a lot of stuff's at all-time low on that end, so it probably won't help. But if something is coming down and hitting demand, like look for those things that are hitting demand and see if you can just get a bounce for a retracement up, or the next wave if you're lucky enough to get something that's continuing to be bullish. But be conscious that what I'm seeing at the moment is most things are coming up, hitting some sort of a high, and then just dying. Exceptions being something like this that is hitting all-time high, but like OMNI, or like, you know, these MIXIE, new MIXIE and new coins are quite, these are quite high probability short. So basically anything that's listed on MIXIE, you can pretty much short. But this has got a bit too much consolidation before it, but, you know, just watch for the supplies to be hit, try and trade it back down. But obviously pick your bias and pick the direction. I'm being very simplistic about this, but those are the higher probability. The long side's been more challenging. So here, for example, Velvet's got very little history on it, and we're finding some are just running, but some aren't. I don't know. Is there no method in the madness? This clearly had a 3-day supply before it's hit this zone, so it's coming off a 3-day, so it's a bit harder. But then let's say esports, for example, was one that I was talking about and gave an entry on. So this is a put an aggressive entry here for, I think that was a 12-hour demand. I've got another one in here if it comes back here, but they're very hit and miss. Like, these are the ones that are kind of 50-50 that I'm setting the alerts and I'm going, well, is it going to bounce? Well, maybe. Some of them are bouncing and others are just throwing a giant red candle that's going and killing the entire thing, like we saw, I think, on MIXIE was one of the MIXIE, yeah, there's now minus 51%. So, you know, very nice long entry there, but then this long re-entry on, well, I think that was actually quite a high time frame demand. I have a feeling it was a weekly. Yeah, so that was a weekly demand up there, but it's come down so hard, it's gone plowed straight through the zone, and just kept going. And I think at that point I did actually have a looking for a short if it retested here, which I've now deleted because it's far too far away. Yeah, so some of them, so they're very hit and miss on whether they're going to hold on the long side, if they aren't the ones that already have momentum. Yeah, so anyway, I hope that is useful. I will bow out now so I can go to my appointment, and then, yeah, tomorrow maybe I'll do that alt stream with more of the kind of random alts rather than the majors, and yeah, but I hope that is useful. Feel free to let me know in chat if you have any questions. Please like and subscribe and support me. I will appreciate it. And share with all your friends and post it all over Twitter and all that sort of stuff, because then it gives me more incentive to actually do these streams. And yeah, have a good afternoon. Ciao.